So what I'd like to do today is I we want to talk a little bit about another video, another production that actually Roy has been working on, and to show you what goes into that and how he has produced that. And then what I'd like to do is kind of show you my interpretation and then get right into how we break that apart in Openshot. And I'll show you what that looks like in Openshot and you can follow along. But before we get started with that, first I'd like to ask if anyone has had any problems. I know that Susan, you had a problem getting Openshot working on your machine because of the version of the Mac operating system you had. Anybody else have any issues?
Yeah, Mike, I just spent an hour kind of knit together a bunch of clips and then stripped out a soundtrack. And I worked out quite a bit. It's quite an intuitive program just to work out how to do transitions. I didn't do them very well, but I did them. So I have this 4-minute clip which doesn't play. It keeps stuttering and stopping. And then, do I have to render it or anything?
So what I find is in Openshot, it's not, depending on what you have open, first of all, what I really suggest is don't open Openshot with 7 other things open. Shut your machine down, start your machine up, say, now I'm gonna video edit, and then see what you can do. And then see how that, how the Openshot software reacts. It's still going to be jumpy because it's rendering, it's doing all these things. But then when you render it and create a video, it should look exactly as you expect.
Okay, I just shut down Chrome and it's played more of it than it has in the last 20 minutes. So
right, yeah. So
I'll keep that in mind in future.
Yeah, as the IT crowd guys say, have you tried turning it off and on again?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Anybody else have any observations before we get started? Have they tried the software, what they've noticed? Do they like it? Do they have questions about it that they'd like answered today?
I had the same thing, Fred. I made it, knit together a few clips and it seemed fine. And then I went to play it and it was all stuttery and weird. So
yeah, it's night and day, and I just shut down Chrome and it's working fine.
Okay, great. I'm going to try the whole thing again today. And then I asked Mike earlier in a different meeting that we had just about how to adjust volume. So after I put my clips together, I wanted to have some music in the background, but the music is too loud. So he showed me how to do that, but I've probably forgot it already. So he can show us all again.
Yeah, we're going to be looking at all that stuff.
Thanks, guys.
Anybody else? Anybody want to share what they've done? No? All right, well, I'm going to kind of turn it over to Roy. I'm going to have Roy talk about this project that he has been working on with Joan Gavaler. And Roy, I don't know if you have things that you want to, if you have stuff on your screen that you want to share, or if I just want to stop my screen share.
Yeah, I've got a video to show. My question to you, Mike, is would you like me just to cover the dance video? Because I do have a little bit from Mark's blended learning.
I want you to do what you think is useful for our crowd.
Okay, I think I'll give you an overview. It's a 5-minute video that I've got, and I'll talk to you about the project, the dance project. So let me share my screen. So I wanted to show you a video, and I'll stop every minute or so just to ask you some questions, to just make some observations. So I wanted to throw, this weekend we had a shoot at Kimball with a dance troupe, and I discovered the power of GoPro. I've never used GoPro before. They're little small boxes of cameras, and Troy knows all about them. So if you have any questions for that, but GoPros are amazing cameras and so simple to use. So here we go. So we attached a GoPro to the top of Kimball and got some great shots from that. And it's so easy to use. Amazing. All right. So let me play it. It's a film about the making of this dance project.
Okay, so what's happening here? Well, we had to pivot to making our choreography for these fall faculty concerts. We had to pivot online. So this is my first attempt at a digital dance. And so what you're seeing is I've got 5 performers this fall. So they're all in their home spaces in a Zoom. This is just a Zoom recording. And we've got a story, if you will, of being at home, pandemic, stress, school, things aren't working quite right. So we've got that story going. And then they discover a game with each other in terms of being able to, if one person pushes on their camera, somebody else pops off of it. So they've got a game going. And one of them jumps with so much force that she ends up traveling through her camera and lands in Kimmel, the stage.
So what is it about dance that motivates you?
My solo begins with the statement, I dance to hold back death. I dance to feel like I'm staying connected to all the possibilities. And so it's been delightful to find out that even doing it in this new digital format, it still works.
Okay, so I wanted to just say a couple things about that. It was all shot on pretty much on an iPhone or a very tiny camera, and I usually carry a gimbal around, which is like a mini tripod, but the gimbal wasn't working quite well. So it's just so simple to be able to just kind of pull out your iPhone or smartphone and get a bunch of different shots with that. Um, Last week I talked a little bit about the process of nuggeting, which is finding, looking at all the footage and finding something that's like a gold nugget that says or reveals something about the person speaking or about the story. So I was wondering if anybody could guess where the gold nugget is in that 2-minute story.
So now, Roy, when you say the gold nugget,
Okay, I'll be more, yeah.
well, no, I mean, I think for everyone, it might be a little bit of a clarification. Is this something that you're looking for that you're searching for and you're asking those questions and you're actually trying to get it as something that has been sort of preconceived? Or
No.
is it something that happens organically? Because there's something for me that's a nugget that
It's what's already existing. I'm not looking for it. I don't pre-make it. I don't pre-plan it. But it's something that I find in the footage that makes it a little bit more interesting.
so we have some answers here. We have Joan's laugh.
That's part of it. That's definitely part of it because it's something a little bit unexpected and unique to her personality. And Susan Kern has it right. So I'll just play it. It's definitely that. So here it is.
I dance to hold back death.
Okay, so there it is. It really just says everything about her and her passion for dance, and it's a little bit unusual. So, dancing to hold back death. It says a lot. So I wanted to, like, it's a balanced piece. It's like, this is the story. This is what we're doing. It's a little bit behind the scenes, but then it just deepens it a little bit. Um, and it makes it just a little bit more interesting, and you feel like, oh, you know the person a little bit more. So thanks for that. That's really good that you picked that out. So this fall we did a couple of films for blended learning. Steely and Mark Hofer basically wrote out a lecture and then we made it a little bit more interesting. So I've got about 3 minutes of footage from it, and I'm going to stop down in the middle of each scene. So here are 3 scenes that will help when you're doing a lecture or a talk. These are things that'll help bring out more, and also they're easy to film and edit together.
Hi, my name is Mark Hofer from the Studio for Teaching and Learning Innovation. Blended learning provides so many interesting opportunities for us. New ways to engage students with course content, new ways for them to work together and with instructors, and new kinds of learning experiences that are challenging, if not impossible, in a traditional classroom environment. The key is, though, with all this flexibility, is to remain true to the core of what your course is about and the focus that you've identified. So in this film, we'll explore the key elements of identifying the core learning goals that you have for your students, the key content that you want to make sure that you cover, the kinds of learning experiences you want students to have, and how all this can transition into a blended environment. Follow me. As Julie Andrews sang so beautifully in The Sound of Music, let's start at the very beginning. That's a very good place to start.
So that's right there. If you pictured that just being presented without the little bit at the end, so here it basically it's using surprises as much as possible. Mark likes The Sound of Music. He had kind of referenced it. I'm like, no, you got to do it. You've got to go, and you've got to go on the bridge, and you've got to do the dance thing. Yes, and Troy's saying multiple shots and angles. Yes, but it's very simple. It's like just putting the camera in 2 or 3 different places. It's not like a complicated thing that would take a while to do. It's something that, and the bow tie. Oh no, the unsteady camera was distracting. Well, I got to get better.
I feel the same way, but I'm just old. I thought I was just old, but Tyler is far younger than I am.
So there's also the use of fonts, and that makes it a little bit more interesting. I think Mike showed us that a little bit last week, how he made that that scene a little bit more interesting and more and easier to learn from, I think. One of the things that we did was to just make it that Mark steps in the camera and Mark steps out of camera. So if you're doing a lecture or a talk, it's like just that little bit makes it a lot more interesting, I think.
There's something kind of Monty Python about that. Fred Corney, I'm talking to you.
There's Monty Python in everything.
But I think that's how you should do your lectures. You should just like walk in from like into the woods and give your lecture and then walk off.
How do you know I don't?
We had Mark walking in from the woods with a coffee cup, and it looked really awkward. So we kind of tossed the coffee cup. But things like that, if you can, in terms of of thinking beforehand and pre-planning, along with what Troy was talking about with the different sequences and shots that he got, if just a little bit of thought towards it really helps things along. So here's the next
more
scene.
effort into those learning goals and experiences that were even more important. So by the end of the semester, while it was difficult, I was glad I made those choices. You might start by reviewing last year's materials.
Okay, so this is using your mistakes, and this is part of the nuggeting process where anything that's a little bit different or unusual we can use in that. We were originally going to have Mark in a Sherlock Holmes hat or use a Sherlock Holmes clip, but I kind of felt like that laugh was just, and the big magnifying glass was was just something that's fun. And the material can be heavy stuff, or it could be very um, not not always the most comical stuff. But when you add a little humor to something, it's a lot more fun. Um, so I'll go on to the next thing right here.
So now that you've identified the core learning goals for your course and the content topics you want to be sure to cover, now you can shift your focus to thinking about the learning activities. So you might want students to engage with a lecture. You might want them to do some readings and work through some materials. But we also want to think about the skills that we want our students to develop as they go through our course. So for example, if you're teaching a Call 150 course, you might want students to focus on building their collaboration skills, providing each other with feedback, and of course, working on their writing. In an upper level course or a graduate course, you might be focused on skills more akin to analysis, synthesis, and more academic argument. Whatever the case may be, it's really important to think about these learning activities to tie very closely to your learning goals so that you can help your students be successful.
Okay, so there are a couple things in that. One that specifically applies to editing. The original plan was just for Mark to talk, and as he talked, place the post-it notes on the board. And we did that a few times, and we found it to be like where it didn't need to be a 3-minute scene.
Identify the core learning goals for your course and the content topics you want to cover. For each goal, you can determine the learning activities such as lectures, readings, and other materials that will help your students to master the content.
So this becomes like a 5-minute scene altogether. It was going way too slow. So what I did was I had Mark we do the talk without the post-its, and then later on we just filmed him putting up the post-its in order, and I sped up the video a little bit, just a little bit more, and it made it more interesting, I think. So there are ways to, and this is something that Michael, yeah, like Troy's saying, this is the magic of editing. It's like you can really condense things. And the idea of like post-it notes rather than fonts, it's just a step more creative, a step more visual and fun. And Steely's got the whole post-it note thing going in terms of brainstorms. So using the post-it notes.
Well, it also speaks to, that connection, right? Because it's not a font, it's something physical that somebody's touching. And, if you're watching that and you see that, it has a much more tactile feel.
Yes. Yes. It's overall, it's more fun. So those are the tips kind of that I was looking at for just to show. And I threw this, finding the golden nugget, finding the surprises that you never expect to be there, like with the Joan quote. That's like a classic quote. Using your mistakes, any kind of flubs, or even a blooper reel is helpful sometimes. Use post-it notes, and then condensing material by editing them quicker, and finding ways to do that. So those are the principles that I think I'd like to share with you. Any questions or any thoughts?
Roy, Chris Hahn, I've got a question that might be a bit in the weeds at the moment, but I'm very curious about it, given that you just showed us that. How do you deal with the sound there that you have? It seems like you're in that last scene, you're dubbing in the sound later, but obviously, is it different sound clips? Because there's no break when he's speaking. It doesn't look like it's missed. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's one thing, you just do that straight and you could just record him speaking. But here you have to have the sound broken.
Right. That's good. It was just me and Mark, because of the COVID rules and things, we just didn't want to have a sound person, and he had a lavalier on, and we got great sound from that. With that particular scene, because it was scripted, and because he had done it 3 or 4 different times in terms of with the Post-it notes, we knew the order and we knew the pacing. So everything that was on that set was recorded that day. There was no kind of overdub later on. It was just from that day. And I timed the speed of the Post-it notes to match his pace of speech.
So when we're seeing him speaking there, and he's actually on camera doing that, that is the original clip.
Yes.
And you just continue the sound and compress the video side.
Yeah, excuse me. Sorry about the cough. The clip of him putting it on the wall, the Post-it notes, that had no sound whatsoever. But the sound that you hear was grabbed that day during one of the takes that we did. Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll show you how to do that. It's pretty easy to just strip the sound, and that's one of the things that I do is I just lay down a soundtrack, and then everything else kind of happens on top of that. And there are tricks that you can use so that you don't really care what the timing is on the top clip. The way that you can move things around and just cut back and forth from the main clip with the sound to any of the clips that are going to kind of show detail or some sort of overall structure. But anyway, that was really great, Roy. Any other questions for Roy about how he did what he did and the choices that he made?
I have a quick question. I just want to know that when you were shooting this and you saw that it was going to be too long, then you stopped and just broke it down. I'm just curious about you making that assessment while you are taping and going, oh, this is going to be a nightmare.
Yeah, well, because, I mean, part of that, I guess, is experience and knowing, wow, this scene is going to be long. And knowing that the video is only supposed to be 5 minutes long. And if this scene is 3 minutes long now, it's not going to do it. So it was kind of, and it was also not so much knowing that as a fact, but thinking, kind of feeling that, and then going, okay, I need some kind of backup plan in case, and I'd rather get it now than after the edit or in the middle of have to do another shoot. So it's always getting the safety. It was even if I hadn't thought, oh, this is a little bit long, I think I would have gotten that safety to know that we have coverage of we can cover any mistakes, or we can quicken the pace a little bit, if that helps.
All right, so what I'm doing right now, let me kind of go to this video here. We can do a couple of different things, and I don't mind one way or the other what we do. We can I can show you my interpretation of what Roy just showed you, the dance. It's very short, it's 5 minutes, and it basically shows you the contextualization of how I went about kind of contextualizing what he did to make it appropriate for a podcast or a class or something like that, and then to kind of break that down in Openshot and how I accomplished that. Or we can just jump right into Openshot and I can show you just a naked Openshot introduction. We can just grab the videos. I can show you how things work. I can show you kind of the overlays. What do people prefer? It looks like we have some people who want to just jump right into Openshot. Do we want to do that? Okay, let's do that. Let's jump right into Openshot, and I'm going to share my screen with you. I'm going to share my whole desktop, and I'm going to open up Openshot. And I'm going to open it full screen. And so if people have questions, just call them out. Don't write them in the chat because I'm not looking at the chat. I'm just going to be looking at the Openshot, and I'm going to be kind of showing people what's going on. So if people do have questions, they want to see the way things are done, just give me a holler. So when you've opened Openshot, you look at your basic, the frame here. And I've got this properties area here. I've got on the far left, I've got all of my content here in this box on the kind of the near left. I've got my video screen here on the right, and I've got my tracks on the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and start importing something. To import, you import things in one of two different ways. I could either click on the little import button up on top here. You see the import files, the plus. Or I can right click or command click or control click, depending. By the way, if you don't know right now what your right click is, you need to figure it out. If you are on a Windows machine, I believe it's command click. If it's on a Mac machine, I think it's control click. Whatever it is, you need a right click in Openshot or you're going to be sad. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and right click on this box here that shows me all the files that I have, but I don't have any files. And I'm going to click on import files. And I'll click on import files, and I'm going to go to some files that I have got. And the files, I'm going to go to my desktop. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open up a Zoom lecture that I recorded. Let's see, I'll bring both of these in just for the hell of it. And you can click on several if you want to bring in several things. And I'll go ahead and click on open. And it'll take a little bit of time, but they'll eventually import. Maybe. Oh, there they are. Okay, so I have an MOV file, which was a screen recording I did, and I have an MP4 file. So now it's very easy to kind of look at all of your different files. Here are my video files. Let's see if I have any audio files. I can click on the audio files. I don't have any audio files. Let me import an audio file just so I have one. And so now I'll right click again and I'll say import files and I'll choose an audio file, and that's just going to be, let me see where I'm going to have an MP3 file. Should have one in my downloads. Okay, here we go. Sidereal Shuffle Revisited, and I'll open that. So now you'll see any audio files you have are here. And then image files, right? And image files are going to be right here. So I could, if I have any image files, I could import them. I'll just import a couple of image files. But the kinds of image files that most people are going to have, I think, are going to be PowerPoints that they want to turn into images, right? How do you turn a PowerPoint into a set of slides that you're going to import into Openshot? Let me show you how to do that, because that's going to be a big deal for you, right? So let me go ahead and I'm going to cancel this, and I'm going to minimize this screen here. And I'll go ahead and open up a PowerPoint. And I'll go to a recent, here's my learning perspectives, right? So here I am, and here's my PowerPoint, and I want to save this as a series of JPEGs so that I can import it into my Openshot presentation, into my Openshot movie. So I just need to go to home. Let's see. Where's the save? Oh, file up on top. Save as, or export rather. So you go to File, Export, and then you're going to choose, instead of a PowerPoint, you're going to choose JPEGs, right? And now I want to save every slide as a JPEG, not only the current slide. And where do I want to save it? Learning Perspectives temp. Okay, and I'll hit Export. And now every slide has been saved as a JPEG. Perfect. On my desktop, and you can see there it is on my desktop, Learning Perspectives temp. And I'll minimize my PowerPoint. And now I'll go ahead and import those images. And I'll right click, I'll say Import Files. I'll go to my desktop. Here's my Learning Perspectives temp. I'll hit Open. I'll choose all of these. I'll hit Open. And now it's going to ask me if I'd like to import them as an image sequence. Always choose no for this. I don't know what the hell an image sequence is, but it seems to break everything. So just hit no, let it import as a regular image. So now you can see I have some images here. Let me open this full screen. I've got some images, I've got some audio, and I've got some video. I've imported all of them and they're now in my workspace. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing right now. And I'm gonna open it up to questions, comments, everything clear? Are there things you want me to go over? How do things look from your perspective? Are there things you need to know that you feel like you haven't gotten yet?
Can you separate the sound from your video that you've already recorded? Can you separate that sound out?
I'm gonna do that next.
Thank you.
Now we're gonna import everything. So now we've got everything in our library, right? Like on the bookshelf. Now we're gonna put it on the workspace. So let's jump back into it. Okay, so we're in Openshot. And now the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna grab one of these videos and I'm gonna drag it and I'm gonna plop it down onto my timeline on track 1, right? So let's take a look at this. I've got it here and it's really small and I don't know how long it is. But now if you take a look, I can see there's the timeline, and if I stretch it over here, it looks like it's gonna be about 21 seconds, and you can see the time was right there on the top. So there's a 21-second clip, but everything's happening really tightly. So I want to spread things out so I can see it a little bit better. I've got this scroll bar at the top of my tracks, and if I grab it, you notice I can stretch it out. So now as I push it forward, the window grows because now it's showing every space is 3 seconds zoom out, right? And I can choose a 1 second zoom out as well. And now if you notice, I have a scroll bar down at the bottom so that I can really fine tune things. This will be important for later on when you might want to really have a transition that works exactly right, or have text that comes in at the exact moment, or just have the sound line up. So now let me play this for you and we'll see what it sounds like. Before I play it for you, let me go ahead and make sure I'm sharing the computer sound and optimize for video clip. Okay, so now first let's listen to it.
I don't hear your computer audio there, Mike.
Oh, you don't hear my computer audio?
I'm not sure if it's being shared on Zoom. Yeah.
It says I should be sharing the computer sound. It's funny that you're not hearing it. Nobody else is hearing it either?
Nope.
Okay, well, pretend like you heard it. It's not a big deal. I wasn't saying anything particularly interesting. But the point is, I now want to separate the audio from the video, right? So here's where the right click is really important. And we're going to go through the right click here for probably the rest of today. Because the kinds of things that we're going to be able to do on a clip, that's the most important thing for us right now. All the other things, bringing audio in, bringing titles in, all that, we can deal with a lot of that next week. Today, for most of the time, I want people to feel comfortable with what they can do with clips and laying clips on top of each other, okay? So the first thing you'll notice is if I bring in the other clip, because it's nice to have 2 clips to look at the same time. If I bring in the other clip, whichever clip is on top is going to be the dominant clip. That's the one that's going to be visually there. And if you notice, that one's now on top. And if I drag my line across, that's what's happening. So anything that's on the top is going to show. If I wanted to clip this, I'm going to do, so let's say I wanted to chop this clip in half, or I wanted to split the audio or something like that. I always want to make sure, other than chopping my clip in half, that I start everything at the very beginning of my clip, because there are lots of actions that you are going to do on your clips that have keyframes. And what a keyframe basically does is it splits the clip between what came before and what comes after. So if you put an effect on a clip, like you zoom it in, if you zoom it out, if you blur it, if you take the audio off, if you whatever it is, if you do it while you are looking at the clip, in the middle of the clip, you see that red line, it's going to think, the clip is going to think that that is a keyframe, and it wants to do everything before that the way that it looked to you before, and everything after that the way that it looks to you the way you changed it. And that's really important for animation purposes, because if I want something to zoom in or zoom out, it's really going to help us, but it's going to really mess up your thinking if you don't get into the habit of just moving this little slider bar all the way to the beginning when you want to affect changes that are going to affect the entire clip. Okay, just a little point about that. So now let's get to a right click, or a control click, or a command click, or whatever you got. So now if I click here, you see I've got all of these options, and this is really the beauty of Openshot. It's going to give us all the options that we need. So if I wanted to fade, I could fade at the start of the clip. I can do a fade in that's fast or a fade in that's slow. Let's do a fade in that's slow. And now if you notice, I did the fade in that's slow, and if you see, there's a tiny, tiny little line, a red line that appeared on my clip. That's right there-ish, right? And that's the slow fade in. So what happens when I have that slow fade in is, if we watch it, you see it does this really ugly, weird fade in. But now if I stretch this guy out, he'll come in later. Now if I play it, and then you notice how choppy it is. This is the complaint that Fred and somebody else was having before. But yeah, it does get choppy. And then you just have to kind of wait for it or do whatever. Turn your computer off, turn it on. So anyway, if you'll notice, that's going to be a fade in. So I'm going to right click on it again. And if I want to get rid of that fade, I just go to no fade, and I get rid of the fade. So now the fade is gone for the entire clip. And I can just go down the line. I can do an animation, which I'm not going to do, but you can do, you notice how all the different animations I can do. Let me actually get rid of this clip because it's kind of cramping my style. I'll just do the smaller clip. So let's do an animation, and we'll do a zoom in 50% to 100% from the beginning. And let's see what that looks like. Okay, so it did this weird zoom in. And you're like, okay, I don't like that. So I'm going to say no animation. So you get rid of the animation. And this is going to be, most of everything that you want is going to be right here. You can rotate it. Let's say that sometimes if you record on this is going to be important when you record on a cell phone, because Roy's footage that he sent to me, by the way, of Joan, her interview, some of it was sideways. So I had to rotate it, and it's very easy. You just go ahead and rotate it, and then the whole thing is going to be rotated, right? And I can just undo if I want to, and undo is up at the top. But I'll right click on it again. And I can also change the layout, which is kind of nice. So if I wanted to, for example, let's say I wanted to have a map or a video playing while I was talking at the same time. I might want to go ahead and have a quarter size top left. This video would appear. Because now what I can do is, I'm going to just copy this because I don't want to deal with that other big one. Actually, I'm just going to paste this one in again. Put it right down there. So this will be a little buggy, but a little freaky, but you'll notice I've got a 1/4 size of whatever I have in the top left, and then I have the other thing that I have in the full frame, and it's a picture in a picture. Right? And so I can change that if I like. I can move it. I'll do the same thing. I'll right click. And notice this one is on top. The quarter size one is on top. If I put the quarter size one on the bottom, what would happen? I'm not going to see it at all because it's being covered up by the full size one. Okay, so that's an important kind of thing to remember. And let me delete that quarter size one so we don't freak out too much. And so now that's the layout, and you can change the layout, which is really nice. You can speed things up if you want. I wouldn't do that for this one, but let's say you had action. So a lot of times what I'm doing is I'm showing people, you know, mouse actions or things like that, or logging in. And so I can chop the clip up and I can make it faster or slower doing it that way. And here's that other trick that we were talking about before, the volume of the clip. So I could actually reset the volume. And at the start of the clip, I could have it fade in. I could change the level of it, or I could do it at the end of the clip, or I can change the level for the entire clip. And I can make, so background music, I can put in at 20% or 10% or whatever I want it to do, right? But now if you'll notice, when I change that to 20%, here's this sneaky little properties area. And properties, every clip has a property. So if you'll notice, I've been showing you with a right click how things work, but you can change most everything here as well on this side. So like here I've got my scale. So right now it's set for best fit, scale X, scale Y. I can start dragging it, so I can really get it to fine tune, and I can type, I don't have to drag it, I can actually type things in, right? I can change the X location if I need to really fine tune it. I can change the Y location to really fine tune it. You know, I can do lots of different things like that. I can change the volume here. So it was at 0.2 before, and you notice I only had 0.1, 0.2, 0.3. I can put in my own numbers here. So if I really wanted to fine tune it, I can put in 0.13 and it'll save that as well. Okay. So questions about that so far?
Mike, did you say you could type things in?
Yeah, we'll be typing things in as well.
Good, thanks.
Yeah. And that's another little thing that we'll be doing. But right now you can't type it in on a clip. So I'm showing you what you can do on a clip, and then I'll be showing you some of the other things that you can do. So that's going to be up on top. There's a little thing, if you notice, it says title, and that's where we're going to add titles. So, and there are two ways to do it. Oh, go ahead.
Is there a trick in the properties column there on how to activate the each line so that you can change the numbers? Because mine wouldn't let me change anything.
Oh, really? Well, usually it depends on where you are in the on the slide, on the clip itself. So you may want to just go to the, because if you notice, see what happens here all by itself. I made a keyframe right here, and that was what happened. Everything is at 100%, and as I drag, you'll notice all by itself, it's moving to that keyframe. So it depends on where you are. If you want to share your screen, I'm happy to take a look and see what you got if you have it up. Everyone can learn from it. You don't have it up right now? Yeah, and we can, and if you want, you know, I don't know if Roy or Troy would want to go and take a look at it in a breakout room, but you can certainly do that, or we can just talk about it later on after the workshop if you want to stay later.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Thanks. So let's. Any other questions while we're kind of stopped?
I was using the fade option, and I was curious. I don't know if this is jumping ahead. How do you control how fast the fade is or how slow the fade is? Is that something you do in the properties bar?
Excellent question. So I'm going to do a fade. I'll fade in slow. And if you notice, the alpha is the thing that changes. And that's the other thing that you can always do is you can watch. So like, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say no fade. And if you notice, the alpha changed back to 1. Okay, so let me just show you what I would do here for a fade if I wanted a very specific fade and I didn't just want to do fast or slow. So I've got this clip here, a dance clip, and I'll play that. And so now let's say that I wanted this image, which I'll drag over here, to fade in right at that point. So I've got this slide that I want to fade in. So right now, if I play it, we see the dance, we see the line here, and there's a hard cut. So I want it to be a fade. So the first thing I'll do is I'll move this bracket, this cursor, all the way to the beginning of the slide that I want to fade in. And you'll notice that that slide is now in red. And if you go up here to the alpha, you can change the alpha to 0. And what that will do is it will make that slide, the entire slide, invisible. Watch. So now if I play it, you'll notice that we don't see that slide anymore. So let's say I wanted it to be completely in at a certain point. And let's say I wanted it to be completely in right here. So I'll pause it. So I've got this cursor, if you notice, it's right there at the point that I want it to be 100% or 1 alpha. And it's already at 0 alpha for this entire clip. Here's where my keyframe comes in. And I'll click on that keyframe and I'll now give it a 1 right there. And now it's on at that point. And you'll see, here's my fade. And I'll play it again. Now this is an exact fade. It's a very slow fade and it comes in finally, and now it's a complete fade in. So now the issue here is you might notice, I'm going to zoom in so we can really see this nice and tight, and I'll bring this to the front. If you notice, I made a mistake here. That's why you like to zoom in nice and close. And I'm glad I made this mistake because you might have the same mistake. So you'll notice that I've got, it comes in for a split second, it just explodes, because you can see I've got a keyframe here at 100%. I don't want a keyframe at 100%. So what I do is, in this case, I'm just going to clip it right exactly where I want it. So I hover right at that first, the second keyframe, and then I will say slice, and I will keep the right side. Now it's gone. So hopefully now it's a smooth transition, and let's just watch it to make sure. So there it is, totally invisible, and it comes in nice and slow, and it'll stop coming in at the end of that keyframe, which we can see right here. And now it's completely in. So hopefully that's an explanation for you of how that you can control the fade in and the fade out. And you can delete any clips that are on the
Before you
board.
take off on that, can you show about splicing like two different films together? Can we cover how you would do
absolutely, absolutely. So so let's go through the, well, we're almost there. We're just going to go through the kind of list of things that you can do in order, and we'll get to that as well.
Can I ask a question while we're right here?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so I thought I had my videos on mute, and actually you could hear me saying, giving my subject direction, and I didn't want any sound at all.
Right.
Because I was hoping to do a voiceover later. And so you're saying what I could do with the volume is just take it down to 0?
Yeah, you can do that. That's one thing. So I can go to volume, and I can go to entire clip, and I can say level 0, and then that retains all of it, right? Or I could do this. I can say separate audio, and tomorrow, I think that's the question that you had. And then I'm just going to say this single clip. And now when I've separated it, you'll notice it's this weird thing. It doubled it up, and I'll grab it and I'll pop it up on top. This is the audio, and it's hard to tell because I can't see the audio wave. And to see the audio wave, I'm going to right click again, and I'm under display. I'm going to say show waveform instead of thumbnail. And now you can see, well, actually, maybe I'm not talking very loud in that one. Let me stretch it out a little bit. Maybe I'm not talking very loud, but if you see the waveform, you should be able to see it. I'll pull one of these in here because there's better audio in there. And then I'll do show waveform. Okay, so that one shows a little bit better. Yeah, there's still audio in this other channel. You just can't see it because it's just spiked. Oh, you know why it's so low? Because we turned the volume to 0. So now I can just say reset volume, unless I'm a liar. Volume, entire clip, let's change it to 100%. No, it's probably just, it probably just looks like that because it's really low. But now if you'll notice, the one that you're having an effect on is in red. That's another thing that I want to point out. You can select multiple and have an effect on multiple things, but be careful because sometimes when that happens, and I'm doing like a command click on a Mac, I guess it's a control click on a Windows machine. Sometimes you will have selected all of them and didn't realize it. And then anything that I do here on the side, I will have an effect on everything all at the same time. So make sure, I always like to click away from all my clips, and then I like to click on the one that I have an effect on. Okay, let me see if we can hear the sound on that one. I'm gonna go to my share and come on. Here we go. It says share computer sound. Tell me if you can't hear this also.
Can't hear it.
You can't hear it?
Nope.
No sounds.
Oh, well, it's always going to be a glitch. What can I say? All right. So anyway, now you've seen how to separate the sound. The other thing that you're going to want to be able to do, and I'll just go ahead and delete these from here. So I just have this video again. And let's say I wanted to move this video, it's not the right size or whatever. That's going to be the transform. And I'll hit transform. And now you'll notice what happens is I have these boxes that appear. And I can go ahead and I can shrink this down. If I hold the, let's see, what is it? Is it command? If I hold one of these, it'll, yeah, command on the Mac, it'll do it so that it doesn't warp your image. And I guess control click on the Windows machine will do the same thing. And I can also, so that's the little blue boxes you see at each corner if you wanted to stretch it out or shrink it. And then the little blue box in the center will allow you to move it somewhere. And this is going to be important not just for your clips, it's really going to be important for things like the contextualizations that I'm going to show you. Text, arrows, slides, all that kind of stuff, right? With maps, if you wanted to put stuff like that in. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit play, and you'll notice there it is. Now it's small. And now I can stop it. And if I wanted to, I could make this full size at this point. And now I can click here. I'll say, let's see, reset layout. And now it's full size. And then I can just have it be full size and I can move it somewhere else. Now to clip them, to split the clip, if I right click here, you'll see there's a slice. And slice gives you the option to keep both sides, keep the left side, keep the right side. I'm going to keep both sides. So now I keep both sides, and now I can grab this side and I can move it on top, right? And it can appear, if I play it, well, you can't really see it very well, but I'm going to pull something else in here so you can see it. Grab an image. I'll just grab this image and I'll pull it right in here. So now I'll play it, and then that image appears wherever it is, but my voice would appear. If you could hear me, if I didn't delete the sound, you'd hear my voice going. And if there were audio on this track as well, you'd hear that audio, and you'd have to decide how to adjust the sound on each of the tracks so that it's the right volume for you. All right, so that is most of everything that you're going to need on this kind of right click. And if your properties window is closed for some reason when you first open it, sometimes it may look like this. What you can do is you can right click and you can just go to properties, and it'll open up that properties window, and it'll stay open until you close it. So if you need the properties area, that's how you can find it. So that is...
Mike, can I ask a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so this is Anne. So I've got 7 little tracks in my project, and then my 8th track is a audio track. So I figured all that out. It's actually, so I have 2 questions. if I want that audio track to be large in the beginning and then fade down or disappear and then bring it back up again and down, or if I just want to splice little bits of it, is that possible? And then my second track is I also imported some images, and it asked me if I wanted to import them as a sequence. So I said no, but like, how do you plop images in?
Right.
Is that too much to ask?
No, no, no. No, not at all.
I mean, I don't want, I mean, you should go in the order you want to go in. I'm just like,
Yeah,
wondering.
but I'll share my screen back and we will take a look at both of those questions. Okay. So let me move this guy out of the way. All right, so first question, how do I take some audio? And very often you may want to do that if you're dealing with audio mainly. You may want to lay down an audio track and then have the images or whatever on top of that, right? So I'm going to go to my audio area here, and I've got that audio file, and I'm just going to pop that down in place. And I'm going to stretch out my canvas here so that I can see. It's not grabbing. There we go. I'll stretch out my canvas so that I see the entire length of it, okay? And I can play that, and you're unfortunately not going to hear it. I don't know why you're not able to hear it. You know what, let me take my headset out. Maybe you'll be able to hear it if I take my headset out.
There we go, we got it.
Okay, great. So now you can hear it. So the wonderful thing is, if I go to display it as a waveform, I can really see the detail. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stretch it so that it's really as small as it can in 1 second increments, because now I can really fine tune it and I can see what I want and what I don't want. And if I play it, right, I can cut it right there. And I'll go ahead and I'll slice it and I'll keep only the right side. So now I'll start it here. Okay, now that's full volume, right? Let's say I wanted to have it start to kind of peter out after this. So what I can do is I'll go ahead and I'll slice that and I'll just keep the left side this time. And I have this one piece. So we start at full volume from nothing. Okay, and now I decide, all right, what I want to do is I want to have a fade in and a fade out. So I'm going to go all the way to the beginning because I don't want to start the fade in the wrong spot. And I'll right click and I'll say, okay, now let's go ahead and I will do the fade, a fast fade in at the start. And you'll notice it puts that little red dot to show you where the fast fade in is. And then I'll do a slow fade out at the end. And it'll put that dot, if you notice, there's that tiny red dot there. Now we'll listen to it. Well, it didn't really sound any different to me, but sometimes it takes some time to render it.
I don't see the red dot that you're talking about.
Yeah, it's very difficult to see. I can't really zoom in, unfortunately, but it's.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, anyway, when it renders, it'll render correctly. So that's how you can do that. And then you can also decide that you want the clip to be quieter at certain points, and then you just lower the volume. So I'll go to volume and I'll say entire clip, I want the level to be 30%. And hopefully it'll lower the volume. That's a lot lower. So let me show you a project that I worked on where you'll really be able to see that a little bit better. And I'm going to open up the recent project that I did. And it's this COVID dance for Wednesday. And I'm not going to save the changes to that project. So here's that dance project that I did, and let's see if it'll let me watch if we can watch the whole thing. Actually, here, I'll play it for you.
Done something wrong, so.
Okay, here we go.
There we go. There we got it.
That I didn't want to lose the work we did.
Let me bring it a little bit back further so you can see all of the. This is Adventures in Teaching, brought to you by the Studio for Teaching and Learning Innovation at William & Mary. I'm your host, Mike Bloom. Let me set the stage here. It's October 2020. We're in the midst of a pandemic, and everyone at William & Mary has been making things work in a remote new world since March. Some classes lend themselves to remote instruction, some not so much. But as they say, necessity is the mother of invention. In this episode, dance professor Joan Gavaler teams up with the studio's own Roy Peterson to help students create a new artistic statement in this brave new world.
I started with a statement. I asked each dancer to send me an email answering the question, I dance because. And they all had, of course, a slightly different answer. And I took those statements and we did a series of improvisations based on each of those statements. This was all on Zoom. They watched each other and took some notes, and then they created new phrases of movement, just 4 counts, that captured somebody else's movement and mixed it with their own. And then I put all those chunks together and made longer phrases. I think the different phrasing is stronger, so go back to that. Okay, well, here we go.
So I'm just gonna like hit myself really loudly so that you guys know when I got that. Sounds good.
Okay. So then the thought came that I didn't want to lose the work we did on Zoom, so I created a beginning and an end for the piece that involved being at home with things in disarray. They discover a game with each other in terms of being able to, if one person pushes on their camera, somebody else pops off of it. So they've got a game going. And one of them jumps with so much force that she ends up traveling through her camera and lands. They fly through their cameras. They all spit out onto Kimball's stage and have some time together to dance. Being at home, pandemic, stress, school, things aren't working quite right. You know, this is the hero's journey, right? You start in one place in your life psychologically. In the Zoom world, they transition when they come together and reconnect to each other, and then they evolve to a new place. Normally in choreography, you move dancers through space, but since we're not doing that in the pandemic, we're moving the camera through space. So we're going to get that density of overlap and activity from camera movement rather than dancer movement. And I'm just thrilled with what the dancers / choreographers, what they have made, and I'm thrilled with Roy's involvement with his students in terms of helping to create something that's really interesting and unique to the format that we've had to move to. So this is my first time to sort of, it's a transition of like mental perspective on the meaning and how movement is perceived. It's not so much that I've never thought in this way, like as a choreographer, you're always considering what the outside eye, the audience, what an outside eye is seeing or experiencing, and you're trying to shape that experience. But shaping it through a camera lens is just simply not been my normal way. Just pick one person to follow between Amy and Katie. Just pick one. Continue.
We'd like to thank Joan Gavaller and the Orcasis Modern Dance Company. Orcasis Modern Dance Company performs in 2 main stage shows produced by the Department of Theater, Speech, and Dance each year, Dance Event in the fall, and an Evening of Dance produced each spring. This has been Adventures in Teaching. I'm Mike Bloom with the Studio for Teaching and Learning Innovation. See you next time. All right, so that was it. That was the thing that I produced from Roy's. But let's take a look and see what that looked like when I actually have it in the software. I think this might help kind of explain what the audio is going to look like. And so here's the entire project. And if I stretch my video out as I go, you can see this is actually a slightly different version. But now you can see here, I've got that audio track, that sidereal shuffle, and I've got that dance track here, that clip 3 new angle. It's on the group dance track, and you can rename your tracks if it makes more sense to you. So what I have here on this video, let me explain how the tracks work here for me. I just did this because it made more sense to me. So the bottom track you see I've locked, and that's the interview. And that's Joan's whole interview. And I could grab all of this stuff, and I'm just going to move all of this out of the way so you can kind of see what that looks like. So it's over there, right? And now this is just Joan's interview right here.
I started with a statement. I asked each dancer to send me an email answering the question, I dance because. And they all have. Right, so that's the whole interview. And I've chopped it up into pieces over here, as you can see, for whatever reason. I don't know why I chopped it up into pieces, but that was my process. I watched the whole interview and I thought, okay, what am I going to use? And I laid down that audio track. It's a video track, but it's also an audio track. And when I didn't have anything particular that I wanted to show people, I showed her, okay? So now I have this other track. This is the group dance track. So I'm going to move everything else back in, and I'll show you what that looks like once I move that back into place. Hopefully this is a little bit helpful for you. I'm just going to grab all of this. I'm going to move it all back into place. And I'm going to move all this back out, and I'll leave just that second track. If you understand what I'm doing, this is nothing you're ever going to have to do, but I just want to show you what the tracks look like. So if you'll notice, this is everywhere where the group dance is, right? And I decided I wanted them to appear, and I wanted the audio to be kind of subdued in these areas. So that's what I did. I selected this, and I said, okay, take a look at the volume here. If you look at this track, you notice I clicked on the track, and I select it, and now I can see all the properties of this track, and my volume is at 0.2. Let's say it's a little too loud for me. I can edit it here, and I can change it to a 0.1, right? And so now it's going to come in. I put all those chunks together and made longer phrases. So
now that comes in without a fade, and I could think about a fade. I can teach you fades next week. We can talk about what fades look good, what fades don't look good. There are lots of different options, and then I see where it ends, and she's going to continue talking.
I'm giving the text,
and we're going to hear that music very low.
Dancers through space. Since we're not
right?
That,
you hear the music kind of low.
We're moving the camera through space, so we're going to get that density of over.
So it's kind of a nice blend of her talking and the thing that we're looking at, but you have to find that balance, right? So that's the second layer. Then I have the Zoom footage that I wanted, and that's the students who are doing their thing in those specific areas. And I'm watching the video and I say, oh, okay, she's talking about the situation where they are isolated and they're by themselves. And I really wanted that transition where the one hit the camera and they fell out, right? That was, to me, the magic moment. Like Roy says, look for the magic. For me, I like the tricky things. So that was kind of tricky for me. So let's see what that looks like when I add that in. So now I'll grab all of these clips to push them back in place. I'm a professional, don't try this at home. And then I'll just grab these and I'll move them out. But now I've layered on this Zoom footage, right? Now you have the Zoom footage here where it makes sense. And now let's watch that.
But I
started with a statement. I asked each dancer to send me an email answering the question, I danced because. And they all had a course.
Right. So now to me, that's a little flat. I wanna punch that, and I want to announce who she is. So I have the titles. So here's the text track that I have right here. And I'm going to move these other things out. And now let's play that. So now you'll see
I started
Joan
with
Gavaler comes
a
in.
statement. I asked each dancer to send
And
me
then
an email
she goes
answering the
out.
question, I danced because.
And then the
And
I
they all
dance
had,
because comes
of
in.
course, a slightly different answer. And I took those statements and we did
And I
a
decide how
series
long
of
I want it to be there.
improvisations based on each of those.
And if I click on it, you'll notice the properties here. I have those same kind of properties. I can move it around if I want. Let's say I didn't like I danced because to be here. Let's say I wanted it to be somewhere else. Then I can move the location. I'm going to move the Y location so that it goes up at the top. Let's say I wanted it at the top, right? I can choose that as well. But you notice what I did. This is where it's tricky. Remember what I told you about don't move something if you're not sure where in the frame you are. I moved it to the top at the very end of the frame. Now I made a keyframe at the end that's at the top, but there's also a keyframe at the beginning that's at the bottom. So what's going to happen? It's going to do a slow drift to the top. Maybe that looks good. I don't know. Let's try it.
I started with a statement. I asked each dancer to send me an email answering the question, I danced because. And they all had, of course, a slightly different answer. And I
think it looks
those
stupid.
statements and we did a series of.
So I messed up. So luckily there's an undo button, and I'll just click undo and it's gone down at the bottom again. And then there's that audio file, right? And the audio, if you notice, let's go ahead and put it back in place just so I know where it goes. It starts right in there, and you'll notice what happens to the music. We can kind of hear the music, and I kind of cheated because you can kind of hear the music that's going on in the group dance clip. And then I kind of cheat into the actual song that Joan provided for me.
Roy's involvement with his students in terms of helping to create something that's really
maybe not
interesting and unique to the format that we've had.
No, I guess I just completely got rid of the music. But I think it works. So the music kicks in right there where it's supposed to. But let's say I wanted it to come in softer. I could say, okay, let's do a slow fade in at the start of the clip. And let's see if that works.
And then helping to create something that's really interesting and unique to the format that we've had.
Okay, so maybe it was too loud, but you get the idea. I'm going to stop my share. Hopefully that was helpful to kind of see what the video looked like and then how it was actually layered when I did everything. Are there questions about that? I don't want to jump into titles and all that stuff right now. We'll do that next week. But questions about what we've done up to this point? Yeah, Anne, I think you had your hand up first. Your volume's on.
Sorry, I'm multitasking here, trying to do what you're doing with my own stuff. How do you drop a photo into your thing?
Yes.
I've chosen my images, so they're in the bank, but I can't, when I drag them and drop them, they don't stick.
Oh,
and
really?
I don't.
Well, for me, I go into the image area. I grab it. I move it to where I want to go, and then I just drop it in place.
Wait, do it again, please.
So I just click on the object that I want.
Uh-huh.
I grab it, I put it into one of the tracks, and I just pop it in place.
Huh, mine is not doing that.
We can meet after everyone leaves, and you can show.
Okay.
Other questions?
Yes, I have a
Mike,
question.
I'm sorry. I would like to ask, on your interview with Joan, why does it look like you have so many different files down here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
You know why? Because it was a longer interview, and I harvested the best parts. So,
Okay.
so basically, here's what I did. I was watching. I'm going to move all this stuff out of the way. So my first pass is this. My first pass is I watch.
That captured somebody else's movement and mixed it with their own.
And I'm like, I don't like that part. I don't have anything to say about it. I'm going to slice it. I'm going to keep both sides. Then I'm going to listen a little bit more.
And then I put all those chunks.
I'm going to say, I don't like that. That's what I'm going to cut off, right? I'm going to slice that. And then I'm only going to keep the right side. And now you notice that chunk is gone, but now I need to move everything else back to cover up that space. And it looks like, I have a choppy video, but it's just, that's the way it is.
Okay, great.
Yep.
And how many tracks are there?
As many as you want. And that's another thing. So like to deal with the tracks, you'll notice as I hover over any of the tracks, I have this little, this caret. And if I click on it, I can add a track above it. I can add a track below it. I can rename it. I can lock it, or I can delete it. So
Great.
as many tracks as you need, that's how many you have.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
And may I ask while my mic is on, how did you get text into your video?
That I will talk about next time because it's
Fantastic.
too much to get into this time. There's many ways to do that.
I have a question.
Yeah, Harris.
I was working on something and I want to take a break and come back to it. And I pressed save and I couldn't figure out how to get back to the project when I came back. I don't know how to save it properly.
Okay, so here I am at the top. And if I go to File, I can say Save Project As. So I'll save the project and I'll give it a name. Mike's new project. And I'll save that, sure, on my desktop folder, and I'll say save. So now if I close it, I'm just going to quit the software. I'm like, oh crap, I didn't mean to quit that. And now I'm going to share my screen again. I'll share my whole screen. And now when I open up Openshot again, if I've saved it, it should be right here. I go into File, Recent Projects, and here's that Mike's new project, and I can just pop that back open immediately.
Okay. Maybe I just did save, not save as, and that's why
I
couldn't find it.
Mike, can I ask an embarrassingly simple question? How do you get your view with so many tracks visible? I'm on mine stuck with only 2 or 3 at the bottom. I've got to try and make the whole thing shrink so I can get more up there.
So there's a little thingy right here in the middle that you can drag.
What are you grabbing there?
So what do you?
Oh, this.
There's a little, yeah, you see that?
Would you look at that?
Yeah.
Oh,
No, that's a great question. So there's one here and there's one here as well. Okay.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for bringing that up.
That's much better. Now I can, oh man, I'll just
Yeah,
say
yeah. So that's really important.
Fred,
The
I
This
spent
is
a
really
good deal of time trying to figure that out. So thank you for
I was
asking.
going up and going down. I've been meaning to ask that question for about 20 minutes. I was so embarrassed.
No, there are no bad questions because there's just so much to know, and there's so many ways that you can be comfortable with the software, right? And it really depends on how you're looking at it. And I can also pop this out, so I can make that be its own screen if I want. See that?
Yeah.
And now it's its own screen.
How'd you do that?
You notice that there are all of these little windows here. There's an X, and there's little.
Oh yeah, look at that. Okay.
But now, let's say if I accidentally screw everything up and I close the windows and I don't know how to get back to anything, right? Mm-hmm. So I can go up to View, and then I can go to Views, and I can go back to my simple view, and then there's the simple view, and then I'm kind of back where I need to be. I can also go to Advanced View. And then it shows me that property that I had before, right? So that's the properties bar. Yes. But it also shows me, the advanced view does the extra bonus of giving me the effects window and the project files window. And we're going to be talking about the effects window next time. If you want, if we have time, next time we'll do all the kind of contextualization. We'll do titles, we'll do bringing in the PowerPoint stuff, we'll do the intro and the outro, we'll do green screen if we have a chance. And then other questions that people have. And now if people have specific questions, if they have specific projects that you're working on, remember, contact us and either I'll help you or we'll pair you up with Troy or Roy. Then you'll get individual help for your specific project. Other questions?
It's so much more intuitive than Premiere Elements.
I love it. I really love it. So, okay, everyone ready for next time? I'll post this so people can watch it, and I'll put in some extra resources, and we'll just meet up again next Wednesday. Thanks for showing up, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you.